So now at this point, we have the view attached to the 2D title block. So now we're ready to create dimension styles for this. So we're going to start with our first dimension style by going to Element, Dimension Styles, and then we'll create a new style called Mech. That's short for mechanical 1-1 and then -2 PLC. So what this means is this is a mechanical style dimensioning style. 1-1 or 1-1 means 1-1 or full scale. And then the -2 PLC means 2-place decimal. So later on, we'll create a 3-place decimal and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the Geometry tab. Most of these settings are correct. We just want to verify or walk you through the changes that you'll need to make for this dimension style. And then if we do have some different settings, we can always change this later on. It'll update existing dimensions. So let's start at the Terminator section here. So I'm going to change this to filled arrowheads. This width and height just controls the ratio of the text size of the dimension, which will be 1/8 of an inch, to the size of the arrowhead. So what this means is the length of the arrowhead will be 1.00 of text or 1/8 inch. So this is not a 1-inch arrowhead. Instead, it's just a ratio. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to units now. So this was the only change we needed to make right now for Terminators in the Geometry tab. So let's go to units. And then we're going to go down here and change our accuracy to 2-place. And then since this is imperial style drawing, we're going to uncheck leading 0. So you can see your style update down here. And then over here on the left for angles, since we do have some angle dimensions, let's change that display. We'll keep it as decimal degrees. We'll just change the accuracy to 0. Okay, so at this point, we're good with the Units tab. Let's go to Text. We're going to set up the font to be the same font that we were using for the notes. So we're using font 100. So that's up at the very top. This is a Bentley font, not a TrueType font, but you can use TrueType fonts in your drawings. But we'll pick the ANSI Symbols font. And then height and width will be 1/8 of an inch. And then for the orientation, we want this to be horizontal. We want the location of the text to be in line. So this places it in line with the dimension line. And then that pretty much does it for this. Let's go into symbology. We're not going to do any overrides. I just wanted to show this to you. If you did want to override the color, style, and weight of any of the components of the dimension, we could do that by checking these boxes. But we'll let level properties control the dimensions. Then we'll go to Advanced. And then under Tool Specific, you're going to need to change 4 of these. I'm going to go ahead and expand them. So click on the plus next to Radius, then Radius Extended, Diameter, Diameter Extended. Then what you're going to do is get rid of the prefix for all 4 of these. The reason we're doing this is because when we have multiple features of the same thing, we have to put the word or the number 2x in front of it. This will not allow you to do that if you have the prefix turned on. So we'll use the equivalent symbol or letter for the prefix when we actually do the dimensioning. Okay, at this point, let's save our dimension style. This should be good for now. So let's close this dialog, and then we can start setting up the dimensions. Before we do that, though, let's go ahead and create a level for these. So I'm going to go to my Level Manager tool again. And then we'll create, actually, we already have a dimension level. The reason why it's already here is because this came over when we did our reference files. But we do need to set up another level for center lines. And then we'll also need to load up a custom line style that I provided with you in the support files. Let's close this for now, and let me just talk briefly about how to set up the line style file. So we're going to go to Element, Line Style, Custom. So these are the line types that are loaded with the drawing. So if I go down to center, you can see here that the dashes really aren't set up to be the correct size. And same thing with the hidden lines. They're really not the correct size. So what I've done is I've provided you with some modified versions of these. So let's go back to Element again, Line Style, but this time you're going to click on Edit. This will open up the Line Style Editor dialog. Then you're going to click on File, Import, and then MicroStation resource file. So this will allow you to choose the correct file for the updated line types. And then I'm just going to go out to my desktop, and then under exercise files, I have a file here called line styles-microstation essentials. Just select that and then load all of these line types up together. So you can just do a shift select. That'll pick all of these and then hit import, and that will bring them into our drawing file. So now we have these extra line types here. Okay, so let me close this up. So now I'll go back to my level manager. And then under center lines, now I'm going to pick my center line style. You can tell we loaded the custom ones because center short, which we'll use on occasion, was not part of the original line type. So this is kind of a signal that you have added on the additional updated line types. And then let's go ahead and change the line weight to 2. I think we're ready to go ahead and add in our center lines. So we'll do the center lines first before we add in the dimensions. So first of all, let's open up a new tool palette. So let's go to Tools. You're going to scroll down to Dimensions, then all the way down to Open as Toolbox. The reason why we're going to be using this toolbox rather than the one that is already included in the drawing task is because this has the extra tools we need for our dimensioning. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this up at the top here. There we are. Okay, so now we're set. Let's go ahead and pick on the Radial Dimensions tool. And we're going to use the center mark option first. You also want to make sure you're in the correct style. So I'm choosing my Mech 1-1 two-place style that I just made. I'm going to use center mark for my mode. You want to make sure that association is turned off. This will allow us to expand or make smaller the center mark. And then I'll just set this to 0.0625. But I want to include the minus sign in front of the number. This allows us to make changes or adjust with the cursor the size of the center mark. So now I can zoom in here and click on my circle, and there's my center mark. So I'm going to do this here and also on this circle and also on the end of this slot. For my other center lines, on one other thing I forgot to do, let's move these over to the correct layer. My fault. Okay, there we are. Also, one other thing I've noticed here is in our element attribute overrides. This wasn't an issue until now. If you didn't fix this earlier, it's okay. We'll just fix it right now to by level for all of these. So what this does is if we change our layer level, then these update automatically. So let's go now to center lines. So you can see this updates the color, style, and weight. And then I'll go ahead and add in an arc for the center line here. So I'm going to go to my arc tool. I'm still in center start. There we are. I want to just drag an arc across here. And then I can use my extend line tool here to extend this arc back over here. And then you want the dashes to wind up in the center. So let's make one other change here. I'm going to go back to my line style custom tool here. And then I want this shift setting to be set to center. This will center up the shifts. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and update this line to the correct style because it won't update automatically. What I'll need to do instead, there we go. Now the dashes have centered themselves up. And one other small change here that I need to make to the center line layer. Let's go ahead and change this to 0 for the line weight. That's better. Now we have the contrast we need between the center lines and the object lines. Okay, so I think that does it for all of my center lines. Oh, one other thing here. Let's go ahead and add in the line here from the center of the circle to the arc center. Now, if you're having trouble getting the center snap to show up at the center of the arc, what you should do is turn on the snaps button bar. We haven't done that yet. We haven't needed to yet. So I'm going to click down here on the snap mode tool and then button bar. And then I'm just going to dock this next to my AccuDraw area. And this way I can override the snap mode by clicking here. So let me go back to my line tool again and start my line here from the center. So now I can just click on my center snaps tool once and it locks onto the center of the arc. And then now I can go ahead and extend this line out. And then I'll do the same thing over here. Okay, so now we have all the center lines in. Let's go ahead and add the dimensioning. Now, because it's a little tight here for the dimensioning, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to move this view off of the title block over into open space here so I can do my dimensioning, then we'll move everything back in. And this will cause us to have to move the reference file. So I'm going to go ahead and click once on my reference file here, and then use my move reference tool and move this over. Now our center lines won't go with us. So what I'm going to do next is use my regular move tool and then move these lines using the move tool. There we are. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add in our dimensioning. And let's go ahead and use our linear dimensions first. Now you're probably noticing at this point that I may have forgotten this arc here. So this is a good way to show you how the 2D file is linked up with the 3D file. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch back over to the default view. That'll take me back to the three-dimensional model. And then what I'm going to do, rather than redo the profile here, because I've already extruded it, I can add in a rounded corner using my blend feature tool. So this is a preview for our later projects here. So I'm going to go into feature modeling, blend feature. I'm going to set my radius to the same radius as I used for the other rounded corners at 0.13. Then I'll go ahead and click here on the corner and then click to accept. You can see how it adds in a rounded corner here. So now I'm going to return back to my 2D view, and you can see how the rounded corner has appeared. Okay, so I'm going to use 2-place decimal. Now at this point, I need to make another style. So I'm going to go ahead and make up a new dimension style. So what I'm going to do first is rename this one Inside Arrows. The reason why I'm doing this is because when you have different dimension styles with like arrows inside, arrows outside, rather than toggle between those two because it would change all of them, it's better to create an additional style. So now I'm going to duplicate this style and then call this Out Arrows. And actually, just so I don't have the very long file name here, I could probably go ahead and just get rid of the word arrows. I'll just say out and in. That should make it pretty easy to understand, hopefully. There we are. There. So now under geometry here, so now that I've created the inside dimension style, I want to set my text terminator setting to term inside. And then for the outside style, I want to override and set my terminators to outside. So now let's save both styles. So we're going to be toggling between these two styles when we add in our dimensions. If you get this alert box, by the way, this means you've already added the dimension to the drawing. Just hit yes to all and it'll update the dimension automatically.